Welcome to I See India, a podcast taking a deep dive into social issues plaguing India and looking at existing and possible solutions to them.
We are here to really get our hands dirty and dig deeper into problems and have serious conversations about solving them.
Welcome back to the second episode of the I See India podcast. So I think let's just take a moment to recapitulate our learnings from the last episode. A great session we had to kick off this podcast. It basically boiled down to letting ourselves play with, experiment with life a little bit, bring a little bit of play in our lives. And for that, giving ourselves the freedom to quit and pivot to a different thing if we ever so determine that our energies are going into a bottomless pit. So learning to strike the right balance between tenacity and that freedom to switch tracks is of essence here. What would you say, Megha? What did you carry back, and what are the thoughts that have been lingering in your mind since our last episode?
Yeah, I think the idea of not taking life too seriously, which both of us kept getting back at, and that life is going to be fine no matter how much we stress about it and worry about it. It's going to turn out fine. So I have been thinking, how could we help students equip themselves with the tools and skills needed to build that attitude about not taking life so seriously, but again, striking the right balance between the working hard towards a goal and knowing when something is not working and having the ability to quit and again try something else. So that got me thinking about all sorts of things that are also going on right now in the media about the whole 70-hour work week thing. That is a right, I think, along the lines of thinking where to draw the line. What do you think about it?
Oh, yeah, plenty. Plenty of thoughts around it. See, I've done my time in the corporate arena, and it's been a while since I turned to freelance. And it is a given that when you're building your own brand, you're building an entity of your own, you are going to be, if you're motivated enough, if that fire in your belly has been ignited, then you will happily put in those hours, 70, even more. That becomes your mission for the next many months, years. But to be prescribed it is counterproductive. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot force someone to put in those many hours for somebody else. So if the intent behind that message was you look at the larger picture, you find a sense of purpose in something beyond yourself. Looking after yourself, your work-life balance, your family, giving all the priority is of vital importance. But looking at a purpose beyond that, a bigger purpose, a bigger calling, whether that purpose be nation building or leaving a legacy, or what, you inspire with your words and let people take that up as their purpose, and then let them do what they have to do to get themselves there. They'll happily put in those hours, but it's foolish to prescribe, a set number of hours a working week.
Yeah, the moment that element of choice goes away and you feel like you're being forced to do something, you turn hostile towards the entire idea itself. Yeah. And that reminds me of a quote from a Mark Twain book, Adventures of Tom Sawyer. It was about whitewashing a fence, and where Tom, a kid, he wants to play, but he's forced to paint a fence. And he gets his friends to do it for him by making them feel that that's something that is hard to do and it's an art to do it. So the author says there that work is something that a person is obliged to do, and play is something that one is not obliged to do. And that's where the difference comes into the picture. When you're just forced to do something, it drains your energy, it stresses you out, and then you just feel overwhelmed by it. But I think both of us agree, like 70, 80, you lose track of the number of hours that you're putting in when you're driven by an internal motivation. But that said, I think 70 hours is not sustainable. It's like 14 hours a day, or 10 hours or whatever. It's not possible to just continue it long term.
Yeah.
While it's fine, but irrespective of that part, you cannot force someone to do that.
Yeah, you couldn't have put it better, actually. When you're just enjoying, putting in those hours, you will because you want to, not because you have to.
Like, your mental state is so different. And because play is something that is inherent in all of us. Like, we are all across all animals. I mean, the number of videos that are there on Instagram of dogs or any animal, like, just having fun. They invite other animals to, like, let's have a play together right now. So that is everywhere. And if we are trying to ignore that inherent feeling in us to take things lightly once in a while and engage in something trivial just for the sake of it, it doesn't have to lead to anything. It's just giving you fun. So I think that is something that we are kind of losing track as an adult and even in youth. Today we see that that's not really practiced even in schools. It's slowly dying out.
Right. It's what they say, right? If you don't find yourself a purpose, if you don't have a purpose, you'll be assigned one. And then, can you really blame someone if someone assigns you a purpose that serves their interests, above yours?
Yeah.
So I think the need of the hour is to, instill that sense early on, to look at yourself and how you want your trajectory to shape up, and prepare the right value system early on.
I love what you said, because if you don't have your own purpose, you're assigned one. That's beautiful, because I think as kids, when you engage in a self-created version of play, then you go into territories which you have not thought of. You are exposed to possibilities which you are not aware of. Your mind kind of opens up. And so there's this book called, it's titled Play by Stuart Brown. And where he talks about how such kind of like venturing out into some imaginative play, it creates neural pathways, and it also improves a person's mental and physical well-being. And but he also says that it's important that sort of play is not supervised, because you're then free to be yourself and free to explore everything that you didn't know about yourself, and the places that you can go, the things that you can do. So I think, as you said, that's very important, that if you don't have that ability to think independently early on, if you can build that habit, then that can go a long way in life.
Yeah, you can curate the experience in that set constraints, but leave the exploration part of it itself unsupervised. That should be the child's own doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And setting that value system early on, there's this book, The Growth Mindset, likens it to, preparing the emotional soil. The idea of building a value system for the child in its early years is like preparing that emotional soil. And then whatever seeds you want to sow for their personality development, cognitive development, or development on any front, those go in as seeds. And then from time to time, as the reality of the world changes or the child gets exposed to more realities, you have to turn that soil over to allow those seeds to breathe.
That's beautiful. Wow. What we're saying is that the ability to think for yourself independently is that's changes with time. But the seeds are sowed long back in childhood.
Absolutely.
That's also in the same book, the play, the author also mentioned something about how when we don't engage in that play early on, but we can still succeed in life, because we have learned to please people, please our teachers, our parents. So gradually we learn to please our bosses, and we get there. But the feeling of the fulfillment is not there, because we are not thinking for ourselves. And it suddenly strikes you that I'm feeling lost, and it's already too late, or it feels too late. But of course, even cognitive development can continue to happen later. So whenever you decide to pivot, you can change your life. But it's, of course, easier to do it when you're younger and allowed to have more play in your life by default.
Yeah, of course, raising Your child right is a whole other rabbit hole that one can go down. There are quite a few models to determine, one's personality, but one of them is what's called the ocean model, right? And so it's basically, and so these are the 5 main pillars that make up your personality. And the first of it, O, is openness to explore. So that if you prepare early on, sow the seeds for, that's how important it becomes then. So the other 4 being conscientiousness, extraversion, their ability to interact and open up with other people, agreeableness, and neuroticism, which is, how much you're in control of your emotions. So yeah, those are unrelated, but openness to explore is what's relevant to us here. That's what play enables.
So that's a personality type which is mentioned in the model.
These are personality buckets. So, openness to explore, you could be high or low on it. Likewise with conscientiousness, extraversion, and all of the others. So the more fulfilled you are, on all of them, the more prepared you are to see life through.
Yeah. The moment you mention that, openness to explore, I think just imagining that makes you feel happy, that you're free. The feeling of being free, I think, is very important for one's well-being. It goes back to the whole being forced to work a certain hours thing as well. But
yeah, and it's interesting that you brought this up. So even last time around, we spoke of how the freedom to explore in one's childhood years, so with academic majors or, what to study, till that part, it may not be so much under our control because our parents are still, holding the reins of our lives till then. But gradually, as you go through life, first of all, we have to understand that our parents never, they always have our best interests. They just don't want us starving. So in what they think is, what will bring us professional success, they lead us to take those decisions. But as we go through life and we get individual agency and the freedom to explore, of ours that we can exercise later in life. Yeah, if not earlier, then later. But it's important for it to be cultivated. If it isn't there to begin with, you'd never see that you're not really putting in any efforts to reach your best potential.
Yeah, I think that early training, be it in like learning to pursue something for a long term, at the feeling of grit, along with the feeling of play, I think that you can cultivate it anytime over your life. But if you have it early on, then you might not reach that stage when you say, okay, I can't anymore. Because I think as humans, we don't trust other people unless we have reason to trust them. But similarly, I have a thing. I think that we don't even trust ourselves unless we have given ourselves reason to trust. So, it was early on when we just keep trying and pursuing and overcoming our obstacles and sticking with something. We're kind of giving us the proof that, you have done this in the past. You can do it. So faced with a new obstacle, you have proof that I can do it. So I think that's where the early on training also matters, because you have given yourself enough evidence to trust yourself.
So right now, unfortunately, for a lot of kids at that age and all the way through high school, there is a disproportionately high emphasis on academics. I think we all know, even if it has not been us personally, but I think we all know of a lot of kids who were forced to cut short their training in music or physical education or, martial arts or sport or whatever, because, board exams are coming. It's important to study.
Yeah.
So how do we strike that balance? I mean, do you have any ideas? First of all, do you have any personal experience or stories around it you could share?
I remember class 9, 10, it was, but board exams. So Diwali, you have a very limited time to go out and celebrate, or maybe not celebrate at all. It was all meant to be, you get good grades, you get a better school and college and everything. So, but I don't think it would have mattered if I would have spent a day just enjoying and playing around. Talking of Diwali, it also reminds me, there's this one time, it was on Diwali, there was this siblings, the sister was, I think, around 3 years old, the brother around 5 or 6, and they were walking down a road, just holding hands. and it had just rained. There was a puddle of water. And the girl, being just 2 or 3, she wanted to play. She started hopping on it, splashing water around and giggling just uncontrollably. Exactly. And this is the smiley when I had after looking at that. I was just so happy just looking at that joy, that pure and unadulterated happiness, and just that she was able to enjoy that moment. And then the brother just tugged her along and went ahead. Yeah, those moments, those moments of just not worrying so much and just having fun. It doesn't have to end in childhood. I think just sneaking in those tiny moments throughout life, it matters so much for your well-being. Just the thought of it. Like, imagine if we could do that. He could now just go out on the streets and hop a little. I'm sure that would make us feel better. I mean, in the middle of the day, if you're just stressed out and you can engage in such trivial, playful behavior just for 5 minutes, it helps. I think it matters. I think it also reminds you that, again, life is not to be taken so seriously. It's okay too.
The one time I had collected tadpoles from like this puddle of water, and just like observing them up close. So I've done that, no matter how much I was told off by my parents or everyone around. So when it came to life decisions, though, I think I was less able to stand my ground, because I did fall into that rut around 9th or 10th grade of just signing up for engineering coaching, and because everyone else, that's all they talk about. So that whole thing of school from morning till afternoon, then a quick lunch, and then off to the coaching center. So I did that. So that consumed unfortunately about 3 or 4 years of my life. But then when I came out of it, I think I took it upon myself to reclaim, So I've not strayed away from that quest to learn since. And the good thing I did was I didn't let my brother fall into that trap. So he was enrolled in art class, for the longest time. And I said he is not to give that up. So he continued all the way through his 12th and 11th and 12th grade. He even enrolled for, now there are many coaching institutes advertising it, but around that time, for design school entrances, they have what's called the design aptitude test. So there weren't as many centers who train around that. So he enrolled for it, and now he's a designer. So that's what helped him crack that and get in there. Yeah, the important thing is to strike that balance. Just if you give up all your extracurricular activities or things that really enrich you or contribute towards your growth as a person, whether music or sports or martial arts, it's like continuing to burn a lamp when the oil has long gotten exhausted. So it's just burning away at the wick, so which is not a good sign.
I like that mention, because like when things are tough, how do you motivate yourself to keep going? And that's where these experiences which have told you that, okay, there is more to life than just the present, whatever I'm trying for. And if, for example, someone feels that they are not loved and there's no reason to continue living or continue working, I think something when the parts where they had enjoyed life so much that maybe that just builds a desire to continue living. Because I think other activities kind of feed your soul. I was having this conversation earlier today about how during grad school, it was just work, study, work, and nothing else. And I could feel myself hollowing out. And I checked all the boxes that I wanted to get through. So everything happened, but I could feel that I cannot sustain this for long. And I think doing this podcast is one of those avenues where I'm trying to bring back my soul and feed my soul through such activities which are just beyond what is part of your everyday life and which you feel strongly and like doing.
Yeah.
So this is just, it continues for long. It motivates you. I mean, it's probably going to be midnight soon, but we are still going to be talking because it's is an internal drive, and it doesn't matter. The external factors don't matter that time.
Really, if it feels right, it in all probability is. So just don't suppress or silence your gut if it tells you that taking up a certain extracurricular activity, even in your 11th, 12th, would do well for your personality growth. You should take it up. I happened to be listening to an interview of Sunil Chetri's the other day. He said basically that sport is something that has helped him be fairer and kinder in life in general. The best and most accomplished players in the world see both wins and losses right up till the very end. The way it shapes your outlook towards life, if you only have that tunnel vision and see little beyond your books or your coursework, it's not going to be of much help in the long run, really.
And I think sports is one of those things which teach you grit more than anything else. The ability to keep working on something over and over again, despite the failures and despite all obstacles that come your way. That trains you for life in that sense as well. And in fact, even for international selection teams, they look for players who are gritty. Talent, according to them, a lot of youngsters come along who are extremely talented every once in a while, but they can't sustain themselves because they just can't keep doing it over and over again. And it often happens that the grittiest players might not be the best in terms of innate skills, but they work harder, they stick with it. And it prepares you for the marathon of life. And then you realize it's not a sprint, you're here for the long term. So how do you stick to it?
That's another thing that he shared in the interview. So grit and discipline. So basically it was said in the context of how he follows a very strict diet regimen, in that he has vegetarian food now almost entirely, but absolutely healthy. And he has penciled in on his calendar the day he can have a cheat meal. So it has to be 2 weeks prior to, or, a week after an important tournament. So basically what he said was, if, there are several people who are, in your neighborhood gullies or in your playgrounds who are playing football, cricket, all day, every day, and who are really bloody good, a lot of them. But what sets him and, say, the 15 that represent the country in international football tournaments apart? Any other kid, if, say, a kid were to eat a samosa or a kachori every single day or fattening foods, and he is on a strict diet, then in a single day, you would not be able to tell much difference. In a week, maybe this much of a difference. But a year of going through with that diet versus a kid who is just, not worried about what he puts in and continues taking in junk, the difference will be this much. So that grit and discipline precisely is what gets you there. These are the top 15 that represent the country. And, when we have several talented players all across the country, upping their game or technical skills, anyone can improve on them. But it is ultimately your discipline and grit that sees you through.
But, when we talk of discipline, we feel that that's kind of a punishment. It's so severe and you need to stick with it. But it's just a matter of taking one step at a time, just putting one foot in front of other, just taking it slow. Even that matters, I think. It's not like it doesn't have to be drastic change, or it's just one small habit, one small thing at a time.
And it again goes back to what we mentioned earlier about identifying your purpose. If you have that purpose as your North Star, then precisely that discipline won't seem like punishment. You're working towards it, doing what you have to do to get there. That is your guiding light. And then that discipline is just part of your ritual.
You mentioned identifying your purpose. So I was reading Grit by Angela Duckworth, and it's all about passion and perseverance for life. But there's an important thing of defining passion there. And it's oftentimes that we say, oh, I haven't found my passion, and it just bogs you down. And she mentions that passion is not something that is discovered. You develop it. by putting in work on something and being better at it. And that's how you realize that, oh, I am good at it. I can be better at it. Because you see that improvement happening in your ability to do something by sticking with it for a long time. But she also says that, sometimes it's possible that even if you stick with something, you might not get better. And that's when you realize that, okay, I need to quit and pivot. But you need to stick with something for a long time to be able to say that, okay, something is not working. It's not a month, maybe a year or two. But that's how you get better at something and build your passion. And it's something that I think in recent years, people use it as something it's saying that it's something they haven't mystically found it or not found it. And I think that's a clarification that needs to be made across media in general.
Lately, yes, that's been the theme of quite a few. So that movie we keep coming back to, Soul, as well, right? Like, they call it the spark in that film, right? What it is that ignites your spark to, that's all before it takes birth and that. So all the other mentors have this idea that it is that one thing, whether biology or, jazz piano or, winning that Nobel Prize. The message that came out of the film was all of that, those accolades, accomplishments, or your building yourself to be that proficient in whatever it is just incidental. But your spark is really your will to live, to exercise great determination, to grow yourself as a person in the pursuit of whatever you've chosen. But it is really yourself that you're working on.
Like oftentimes you don't realize what that thing is unless you've tried a bunch of things. If I were to say I'm passionate about doing what I do today, when I was in engineering, I did not like things that I use today as a everyday thing. Signal processing, for example. I used to think I don't like it. But now that I do it for a purpose, I absolutely love it. And I do it every day. So unless you have explored things and know for yourself and the purpose you're doing it for, I think that's when suddenly something become more important in your life than not.
Another interesting thing about, the growth mindset is, it's been segregated into three kinds. So you look for growth in terms of motivation. There's motivational growth, inspirational growth, and there is aspirational growth. So motivation is basically a very temporary, fleeting, injection or a surge of energy. You suddenly look at someone or something and you're like, oh, but that will wear off in some time. One step further is inspirational growth. Say you really are inspired by someone's a smart move that they may have made at work or in life, and you want to follow the trajectory. So that sort of sets your blueprint for the foreseeable future. So say for the next couple of years, 5 years, that's the career trajectory I want to have. I really like what he's done with his life. And then there is aspirational growth. You really are so completely taken in by someone or something, so enamored by an idea, it's all consuming. And then that defines your, again, purpose or reason for existence. And you'd be really lucky if you were to find that source of aspirational growth.
Do you want to say more about the growth mindset in general? Like, is it about having a goal and working towards it, or how do you define that?
I mean, on a basic level, it is that we be intent on working on ourselves. So I think we had brought up this, not as perhaps as part of our recorded conversation, but say like a ballet dancer will toil for years perfecting the craft, those pirouettes and then those movements and, just, whatever the character. If you're expecting for it to change the lives of your audience, anyone watching you, maybe not. For most people, it's just a nice evening out. But through years of practice and honing that craft, it is really yourself that you're working on. Like right now, I'm training in mixed martial arts. And at the end of my life, if I've not gotten into a street fight or not gotten accosted or gotten ambushed, I'm not going to think to myself, oh, what a waste. Never got to put it to use. Never got to break anybody's bones. Because I see the changes it brings in me every day.
Do you feel the physical strength that you're building is also affecting your mental strength, resilience?
Of course, they are all inextricably tied together. So another I really want to make it I want to print it on a t-shirt and then go around with it. So James Clear, the psychologist, so he says the ideal, what you should aspire for is an entrepreneur's mind, an athlete's body, and an artist's soul.
It's fascinating that it is an artist's soul. Why do you think so?
Unbounded imagination. Just seeing the world in ways that few others would get to see. That is what an artist is, essentially. They do what others don't. They create, whether on canvas, whether through movement, whether through their music, what few people, have the imagination to do or to create.
It's also fascinating that artists or any form of art form, plays, comedy, movies, music, nothing would exist if humans didn't have that inherent playfulness. It's about exploration and creativity and doing something that no one has done before. Not being in touch with that side of yourself, that's why it wears you off and you're not compensating for everything that's you're taking away from your life. It feeds yourself and it gives you back energy. Every day through all the activities that we're engaged in, we're constantly drawing energy from ourselves and being playful and doing things just for the sake of it and exploring that part of it which is so inherent in our nature of exploration and creativity. It kind of feeds back and completes the cycle. Of artists are seen as some people who have just boundless limits of creativity, but they work so hard. So they are probably the grittiest people because they sustain their versions of like bad work, bad novels, bad paintings, but they stick with it until they get better and they are satisfied with their product. Grit as a principle of life is seen across all fields, like players, artists. It's not just entrepreneurs. So it's perhaps across the board. That's important and can help you in so many different careers, not just one. It trains you for life. As you mentioned, It's like building the foundation of life.
Even an engineer can be a great artist. There have been, through the course of history, one fine day, one engineer suddenly came up with that great design for a cantilever or a suspension bridge, which no one else had thought of. Everyone had been studying the same principles of engineering, right? But it was that one who suddenly put it together in a way that came together wonderfully and then, turned our world around for the better. So you could have a predisposition, but bringing in that artistry will be your contribution or value add. So Howard Gardner did a great job of doing that, identifying varying intelligence types. So logical, mathematical intelligence is what most people, equate to intelligence per se, but really there's 8, or actually as per his later models, 9. So there's logical, mathematical intelligence, IQ as we know it, right? Verbal, linguistic intelligence, rich use of language, spatial, visual intelligence, bodily, kinesthetic intelligence, which actors delivering the right expression, it also comes under this, in addition to dance, movements, all of it. Musical intelligence, then there is interpersonal, which allows you to have interactions with other people, and intrapersonal, which is self-awareness. And then in addition to this, there is existential intelligence, how deeply you think about life or how much of a thought you give to life, the deeper, bigger questions. So across these 9 is, 8 or 9 is, it's on you to determine which you have an affinity for and which ones you can reasonably get by with, and then choose what you would excel at with minimum effort or with bringing in your artistry too.
And it could be a combination of different intelligence.
It almost always is. Yeah. So now you have a lot of content creators out there on YouTube, who are a lot of people just suddenly motivational speakers, but not everyone has what it takes to be a motivational speaker. For that, you have to have an exceptional level of empathy. You need to understand what will get through to a person going through a situation. So and for that, also delve deep into yourself and see what you have to offer. So interpersonal and intrapersonal, both is what you need, right? And verbal linguistic. If you can't say it gracefully, then it is of little use. If it won't get through, it is the channel that you need to. Then depending on the need of the hour, like a certain time of year, say close to exam time is when students need to hear a pep talk, or so that sense would come through, I would guess, logical, intelligence. So that's at least 4 intelligence types, already. Yeah, just think of anything and say a sales rep. A sales rep again would need a verbal linguistic, interpersonal. They are most likely to be intrusive, right, when they call. So they need to, if they are to have even a slight chance of converting that lead, they need to be sensitive to that person's time, and break the ice. In any job that you think of, you'll not do well in it with one intelligence type alone. So you have to employ a mix of it. Scuba diving is something we were discussing the other day. So in that you need bodily kinesthetic intelligence. You need to have exceptional, because you're maneuvering through tight spaces underwater. So yes, you need to be fully in control of your limbs, your body movements, logical intelligence, because at that level, you have to when you're underwater, you need to monitor your oxygen reading and determine your rate of breathing accordingly, so you do not exhaust your tank, through rapid breaths. And naturalist intelligence, in that you have to, of course, have an interest for life underwater. Yeah, it's endless, really. The list of vocations and the combination of intelligence types.
But say, for instance, I do not have these innate talents, but I want to become some. But I want to become a scuba diver, say. So, is it possible that I can learn? Like, I want to become, like, with all my all the cells in my body, I want to become. That's the kind of energy that I have towards working towards it. So is it possible that I could?
Well, that's a catch-22 then. Did that desire arise because you have an affinity for it? Or, if you want to get there, do you want to cultivate the skills so strongly? Either way, if you really want to, you may just be able to make it happen, I guess. But if you didn't, for example, have naturalist intelligence to begin with, of course, it's possible to exert and like I really suck at bodily kinesthetic intelligence. I can't dance to save my life. But I'm sure if I put in like 6 months dedicatedly and learned under a dance teacher, I'd develop some aptitude for it. May not be, MG level ever, but I could maybe not look like a klutz. Yeah, I think if you really wanted to, you'd make it happen. But then the very fact that you really want to with all your heart get there may just mean that you have a thing for it.
Yeah, so that's something that I would explore by trying it out.
Yeah.
And see if I like it.
The freedom to explore. Yeah.
Like that might just be an idea in my head that, I might like it. Unless I actually tried, I wouldn't know. I think a lot of times as a teenager, we have some very different idea of what something is going to be. And unless we actually try it, I think even just the fact of like becoming an adult, I think that idea is very different when we are in school. Similarly, just trying out things and figuring it out makes us aware of what it entails. Along the lines of trying to figure out what is your purpose in life, I think this also reminds me of the Japanese principle of ikigai, which says that to find something that gives you happiness, you need to find something at the intersection of 4 things. One being what you love. Second being what you're good at. Third, something that is needed by the world. And fourth, something that you can get paid for, which is very practical and also philosophical at the same time.
Very sound advice, yeah.
But continuing to strive to find that thing which sits at the intersection for you.
Easier today than at any point in history, though. You could have a very niche offering, but if you're able to gracefully promote it, propose what you're good at and what your value offering is, and then I'd like organically help them identify that fit intersection. is where the art lies. So if you're able to, you can monetize anything today. You as a brand, your worldview, your advice, your services, you can put up anything on offer, and there'd likely be someone, a taker somewhere. I want to go back to what I said earlier, though, about finding your source of aspirational growth, or even inspirational growth. The need to choose your role models wisely. Early on in life, you're exposed to not so good role models. That is where the need to curate, things comes in on part of parents and those in charge. Give them that freedom to explore, but there should be some curation or supervision involved, at least early on. I don't want to take names, but there are some influencers out there who are, if you don't know what the good bits to take from them are, the life philosophy or core philosophy towards life that they peddle, I'm afraid, is not very promising. Yeah, if you want motivation from them, so, just temporary boost to ignite the fire in your belly, sure, they are brilliant to turn to for that, because they just give that surge of energy and, the way they talk. That is something to learn from them, just how well they put their verbal, linguistic, and interpersonal intelligence skills to use, because they're connecting with people, but, whether for right or wrong, that sense of discernment to understand what to take from them exactly, but you can't make them your aspirational, growth model, role model.
The intelligence needed to discern what is being said just for the sake of it, or which is going to help you in the long run. That is the skill that needs to be developed. Or rather, if any person, even at any age, just starts thinking for themselves just for 2 minutes, is the person that I'm listening to, does that make sense for me? Does that make sense with respect to all the other values that I have in my life? Then you can, kind of put it in context of your own life.
Yeah, then I guess another thing to add to that mix of, what contributes to that sense of discernment or that ability to identify or tell the good role models from the not so good ones is the ability to identify authenticity. I think if you've built yourself up to a level, you can sniff authenticity. You look up to people who are resilient, who are forthcoming enough to share stories of their past failures and take you through their eventual rise and success, the journey. They're authentic about it. So it works on multiple levels, but you have to build that sense of, and I think you'd need that more in today's times when AI is going to be pushing out a lot of content. So at the face of it, you really can't tell what is AI generated and what is human generated. It's getting increasingly difficult. Even I have to take a moment, because they've become so good at, so one has to really apply all the good judgment and good sense to identify spam or a phishing attempt.
It's actually in one of the books that I was reading. There's a research that has been done. If you present to people a person who you say is a genius versus someone who you say has worked hard, then people aspire to become like the one who is a genius, though they all agree that it takes hard work to get to somewhere. So they admire initially the person who has put in all those years and overcome all the obstacles. But it's something innate in us where we want to find that one person, he's so great and he's dropped out of college and he built something and I want to become that person. But that's a conflicting ambition that we have in life.
So Don Miguel Ruiz is an author I really follow and love his work. So for the longest time, he had, the 4 agreements, to master life. But then he added a 5th not too long ago. So I wonder if that was in keeping with his foresight of where the world was heading. So the original 4 were: be impeccable with your word, which is about, exercising the highest level of integrity. Do not take anything personally. Don't make assumptions about anything. Always do your best. And the 5th, which is a more recent addition, is be skeptical, but learn to listen. Be questioning towards it. So,
and I think we can post the links to all of the books that we have discussed so that...
Yes, we should. And because our whole idea is to get through to kids at that important crossroads of life and tell them the things that we'd have liked to hear that would have greatly helped us if we had heard the right. So filtering down, condensing it to a list of books that will set them for life or help build their worldview build that sense of discernment to be able to identify authentic people and advice from the ocean of mediocrity or straight up damaging stuff that is out there.
And always have the growth mindset. It's all about learning and continuing to strive for the better.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. See you next month.
Yes. And then till the next episode then. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.